Alright guys, how we doing? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we share stories from Thailand mainly, but Philippines and Cambodia too, and Southeast Asia in general. So if you've got a story you want to share, the email's in the description. Send it in and I'll get it read out for you. Got another short story today about a guy who kind of got a lucky escape, but it's a pretty funny story as well, so yeah, I think you'll like this one. Okay, let's jump into it. Back in 2014, I lived on a nice little boat in Vancouver, Canada. Things weren't going so great because my girlfriend and I had recently split up and I felt really lost. I had no clue about where my life was headed. Right then, my buddy Ian, who I got to know while travelling Koh Samui the year before, gave me a ring. He'd gone back to Thailand and was working at a restaurant in Koh Samui. I was a bit surprised how he made it work being a foreigner and all, but I didn't really ask for details. He told me I'd really like to have a good friend here with me, and he described the place, which sounded really cool. I was convinced, so I said I'd come over. I headed to Thailand with the hope that it might help mend my heart. Yeah, maybe not the smartest moves, I realise that now. Sadly, as soon as I got back to Koh Samui, I felt it wasn't the right fit, so I decided to head to Bangkok for the rest of my 3-week vacation. But things changed when just a couple of weeks later, I got offered a teaching job there. It was perfect timing, and teaching English became my purpose for staying in Thailand. The atmosphere of the teaching field, which was mostly dominated by guys, didn't quite match my vibe. I struggled to connect, especially with foreign male teachers. Dealing with them proved to be quite tough for me on a personal level. There were some really tough days ahead because of that. I was mainly in one relationship there, and it turned out to be really tough. Our connection was full of ups and downs, and there was a lot of lying going on. I couldn't figure out how I got myself into such a bad situation. Then again, I had read and heard many stories from other foreigners in Bangkok who had been in a relationship with a Thai person and ended up losing everything. So even though my relationship was rough, I didn't really lose anything significant, just some time. Looking back, it's clear that I brought my situation upon myself. When I entered that relationship, I was still emotionally closed off from my previous breakup. I wasn't really ready to open up my heart again for closeness or intimacy, so it's no surprise that I couldn't make those things happen in my life. I always kept her at a distance, not really letting her get close, and naturally, she did the same. There was a lot of space between us. The breakup was a whole different tale because she was really insistent on not letting me go. Whenever I tried to move on, she would find her way back into my life, kind of sneaky like. We went back and forth like that for a while, doing a sort of dance. Finally, in January 2018, I made up my mind that things couldn't continue like this. I realised I'd rather be single than keep going through all this pain, so I walked away for good. For the next couple of months, I stayed completely single to work through that relationship, let go of it, and try to clear out the leftover feelings. After the last relationship, I felt really let down. For months, I kept telling myself that I didn't want to be with anyone new or meet someone else. I had a bunch of problems with women that were bothering me, and I started doing kickboxing to handle them. I ended up getting pretty banged up while doing that. All my problems came to the forefront. It was pretty tough, but by the time it was over, I had worked through a lot of stuff and felt prepared for what comes next. One day, after a kickboxing session, I was walking back to my condo. I thought it'd be nice to grab a coffee, sit outside and just chill. I was sitting there, listening to music and unwinding, when this incredibly attractive girl walked in. I mean, she was absolutely stunning, like flawless from top to bottom. She took a seat at the table across from me, and we exchanged glances every now and then. I'm usually quite shy, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. It had been a while since I actually wanted to strike up a conversation with a girl. Surprisingly, at one point we locked eyes again, and she smiled and asked, "Where are you from?" I stuttered a bit and answered, "Canada, how about you?" I then asked if she'd like to join me at my table, and she agreed. For the next hour, we talked non-stop. We covered everything from silly laws in our countries to the weather back home. It felt like we had a real bond, and I didn't want our conversation to stop. We also talked about our jobs. She mentioned that she's a student and works part-time as a cashier on Soy Cowboy. My heart sank because I recalled hearing that when a girl says she's a cashier in a bar, it often means she's involved in the nightlife scene and may go with customers for money. I have respect for people's choices, but I wasn't really looking to get involved with someone in that line of work. But like I said, there was something really special about this girl, and we had a genuine connection, so I chose not to let it bother me and I just went with the flow. After she finished her coffee and mentioned she had to head to work, I inquired about the name of the bar and whether she'd like me to visit her there sometime. Strangely, she didn't want to tell me the bar's name, which I later understood why. However, she did give me her line number so we could stay in touch through messages. When I got back home, I really wanted to message her, but I also didn't want to come across as too eager. So I played it cool and messaged her 3 days later. We chatted for a few weeks, but whenever I brought up the idea of going on a date or meeting up for a drink, she would come up with excuses like being busy with studying or work. As time passed, our conversation started to lose its spark and we didn't talk much anymore. Eventually, we stopped communicating altogether and she just became a distant memory, so I moved on with my life. One weekend, it was my friend's birthday and we planned to go to a go-go bar to celebrate. Even though it wasn't really my thing, my friend was really into it, and since it was his birthday, he was in charge of that night. We went to Soy Cowboy and entered a dimly lit go-go bar. I can't recall the name, but I remember exactly how it looked. The moment I stepped in, my eyes were fixed on the stage where a young lady was using a certain something to pop balloons in a certain way. As I got closer, our eyes met. I suddenly realised it was the same girl from the coffee shop who had mentioned she was a cashier. I was so caught off guard, not sure whether to laugh or feel surprised, so I just gave a little smirk and I waved. She seemed quite embarrassed, but she had to finish her performance. After the show, she came over and just said, "Sorry, if I had told you the truth, I didn't think you'd want to talk to me anymore." It was definitely an awkward but kind of funny situation. We had a few drinks and by the end of the night, we were both laughing about the whole situation. Life went back to its usual routine after that, and when I look back, I found the whole thing pretty amusing and funny. I suppose I ended up getting lucky in a way, and I'm glad I didn't fall head over heels in love at first sight, even though it was pretty close. I guess my advice, and the reason I'm sharing this story, is to caution people that it's really easy to get swept up by feelings for someone in Thailand. But please, please, please take your time to get to know the person before diving into anything. Not everyone ends up as lucky as I did. I'm not implying that all girls are like that. I'm currently in a long-term relationship with a Thai girl and I genuinely love my life. She's wonderful in so many ways and I have no regrets. So my advice is to stay safe and take time to really get to know someone before diving into anything. Thanks for listening. Oh, what do you think to that one, guys? He got a bit of a lucky escape. It's kind of a funny story though, but yeah, it's still a lucky escape. Sounds like he's loving life now though with his new partner. Could just imagine his face when he walked into that go-go bar. This story's pretty short, but I want to read it out because it's quite good advice about a guy who meets a girl and sees red flags pretty early on, so yeah. Alright, let's jump into this one, see what you guys think. I'm Mitch and I come from Canada. I'm 43 years old and I've been living and working in Manila, which is in the Philippines, for the last 5 years. My job is an engineer. I spend most of my time, about 10 months, in the Philippines and I go back to Canada for around 2 months. Since I've been around for quite some time, I'd say I'm pretty knowledgeable about things that happen around here. At least that's what I thought. Around 14 months back, a friend of mine messaged me. She told me her good friend Tin was going to move from Cebu to Manila. She asked me if I could help Tin get acquainted with the city. I replied, of course. I wanted to know more about this girl, so I asked my friend for some more info. It turns out that she used to work in the bar scene in Cebu. However, she was curious about how things were in Manila and if she could earn better down here. Since I've been in this place for about 5 years, I know about the things that go on in the bars with these girls, and I usually avoid getting involved in that kind of scene. However, because my friend was the one who asked me, I decided to do her a favour. We met on the day she came to Manila. Right from the start I found her cute. But I also heard that recently she got out of a relationship with another foreigner who lives in Cebu. So I had already categorised her as someone I shouldn't pursue any further. She wanted to keep working in the bar scene as it seemed to be the only thing she was familiar with. Just so you know, she was 28 years old. She talked to me about the amount of money she had been earning, and now I understand why some girls choose to work in a bar. Since that was her situation, I showed her around the places known for the nightlife, like Manila, BGC, and a few other spots that aren't as famous. In those areas, she asked around at some places to see if she could work there. In Makati, there was a bar that said she could begin working there. So the next week, she started her job, working only 3 nights a week to test the waters and see if she enjoyed the work and did well. We lived pretty close together and we kept meeting up as friends. The more we talked, the more I learned about her. She shared that she is originally from a certain area in Cebu and she does this kind of job to provide for her 4-year-old son. He lives with her mother back in Cebu. And then, unexpectedly, just like that, it happened. I began to develop feelings for her, something I had sworn to myself I wouldn't allow. We ended up dating and she started staying over at my condo a few times each week. Things were actually going quite well in the beginning. One evening, we had dinner plans set for when she got off work. However, she sent me a message saying she couldn't make it because she was busy entertaining a rich customer. I was quite unsure about how to feel at that moment. Could I really continue being in a relationship like this? Still, I had a clear understanding of the situation from the beginning, so I couldn't really tell her not to do what she was doing. A couple of weeks passed and then the questions started arising. She began asking, "Hey babe, I haven't had any customers lately. Can you lend me some money to send back home?" The initial times, I went along with her and gave her some money to send home. However, it seemed it was never sufficient. She kept saying, "I need money for the condo, the food, my son, and so on." I could sense the direction this relationship was taking, and I'm relieved that I noticed the warning signs quite early on. I made the choice to end the relationship not long after it began, and I think I managed to do it at the right moment. We agreed to remain friends, but over time we naturally grew apart, and now we don't even communicate to this day. I hold no ill feelings towards her or anyone involved in that line of work, as I was fully aware of what I was getting myself into. I suppose my advice for anyone seeking to date in the Philippines or anywhere else is to pay close attention to the warning signs and definitely do not disregard them. So what do you think to that story, guys? It got out quite early. Red flags and got out there. A lot of people ignore the red flags and have wishful thinking, blurry vision. Yeah, short and sweet. Lucky one for him. Lucky escape. Yeah, if you've got a story you want to share, guys, or an experience, the email's in the description. Send it in and I'll get it read out for you. Until next time, I'll see you then.